If you're like most folks Dr. Kris works with, you're active, you want to take ownership of your health, and you want to age gracefully. The problem is there is so much conflicting information out there about health and wellness, it's tough to know who to trust. Most providers are limited by what insurance will approve, so it can seem like they're only able to help you manage your health decline with more meds. On the Dr. Kris Life Podcast, you'll learn how you can regain your confidence in your health journey. You'll learn helpful knowledge about programs, supplements, peptides, and hormones that Dr. Kris has used with thousands of patients just like you to help them crush their goals and be their best selves. So if you're ready to take charge of your health and are wanting to stay active and healthy so you can be a better parent, partner, or lover, then you're in the right place. Welcome to the Dr. Kris Podcast. All right, welcome back, Dr. Kris. I was in Mexico last week, so, I'm trying to get in the groove, but I'm excited to talk to you. What's been going on at the research clinic?
Well, in the video, it kind of looks like in a brief thing, you're still in Mexico. It has that look of like a Mexican villa behind you. So, I thought you were when you originally picked up, but, just a normal busy week, just trying to get through taking care of all the patients. And, we have another training clinic this weekend that we're getting ready for. So just normal busy week.
So, you're working with your patients are coming in. You have one of your physician assistants, I think, is out, and so you're seeing a lot of patients right now. In the life of a patient, when I think about when I go to the doctor, even if I want to be engaged and have questions and want to what do I own in this relationship? I don't get that in the traditional physician relationship. And I was just thinking about you having to step in and take, you're handling two people's appointments. How does that go when your whole expectation is that you want folks to take ownership of their health?
Well, I think it goes back to why does it not always or most of the time work in the traditional model? And it's not because I don't think it's because the provider doesn't want it to be that way or the patient doesn't want it to be that way. There's simply not the time for that bonding. It's kind of like in a weird way, kind of like a newborn baby and their mother. You have to have this bonding moment. And today we're so rushed through the traditional system that bonding moment many times never occurs. And the fact that, I hear it all the time, like a new patient comes in and we will sometimes spend 60, 90 minutes, heck, up to 2 hours sometimes with our new patients. And many times they'll say, that's more information I've gotten in the last 10 years, of meeting with my providers. Even sometimes providers that do similar things to what we do, they'll be like, wow, like hormone replacement. I hear all the time, like, patients who maybe are transferring to us, maybe they, in our part of Texas, a lot of California transplants. So a lot of times they're coming from California and they're like, hey, I'm already on bioidentical hormone replacement, just need to come in, get my scripts filled, and you start talking and 45 minutes later, they're like, oh my God, that was more information than I've gotten in the last many years with my provider, starting from the beginning. So, making the patient feel comfortable. And then, like you said, then you have this extra layer of so now I've got a provider out. And if I go into the room, they're not used to myself. They're used to that provider. But they're used to, usually it's a little bit different. I think it would be different if the roles were reversed. The fact that I'm the physician, they know I'm the owner, the founder, many times to them, they're like, oh, that's cool that I get to see the doctor today. So usually there's not any real barriers with that sort of a situation. They're actually kind of excited, I think, not that they don't like my other providers, but that, I'm coming in and maybe they feel like it's not an upgrade. That's not the word I'm looking for, but that it's a different perspective.
Yeah.
So I usually don't have that, and I just try to pick it up kind of like I'm seeing them for the first time, because I may be. even though I have their charts and I know what's been happening to them, and just say, and I think they find it refreshing. Like, hey, what are your goals, and have they been being met by our practice? And I have a little bit of an expertise that even my mid-level providers. Is there anything you want to discuss today? And many times, yeah, they'll pick up on it, and we'll have a 15, 20-minute discussion about whatever it is that they're looking for, which I think that, again, I go back to practitioners, and I always say, do you actually ask your patient what they're looking for out of the visit? Like, Steve, you came to see me. Well, obviously, we know if we come in and I'm coughing my toenails up, I pretty much know that you want me to heal whatever your respiratory ailment is, right? Or if you're throwing up, make my GI bug go away, or treat me. That's self-explanatory. But, these wellness visits, I don't know if I ever remember, because it was just a foreign concept to me, to actually asking my annual checkup patients when they came in once a year because maybe Medicare forced them to, what do you want to work on? I was always one driving the train. I was the conductor, like, well, based off your labs, this is what I see and this is what we got to treat. And that was what the 15, 20, maybe if it's an annual visit, 30-minute visit ended up being about. Whereas now I do have the blessing that many of my patients are what I would overall call healthy. Okay. I think that term is very vague. I go back to COVID on that. I can't tell how many times I was told, like, my cousin got really ill and he's a healthy guy. And many times I would know that cousin, not as a patient, but I would just go, wow, your cousin is 40 pounds overweight and there's no way he's healthy. But I think that many times we take the word healthy as we don't take any medications, or we only take a couple medications, when and I know through our discussions that you can not be taking medications and be very unhealthy. That just because you're not taking a prescription doesn't mean you're healthy. But for the most part, I would say my patients are overall reasonably healthy. And so we're actually able to spend our time working on goals, setting goals, achieving goals, changing goals. The nice thing about goals is we hope that we set goals that we'll achieve, and then we can modify and keep going.
I mentioned that I have a colonoscopy coming up, and I had to like pre-authorize and everything. And they asked me, like, I don't know, 50 maybe questions, like an interrogation, trying to collect all this information. I'm sure your new patients go through, there's some general questionnaire that they fill out. But when you were talking, I was wondering, what would be like the best 3 questions to ask you, or a provider that is a real, what I say real, like a wellness provider, someone that's wanting you to be proactive and take control of your health.
You mean from the patient to the provider?
Yeah. What are like the top 3 questions you love to hear?
And I don't know if they're questions, maybe more just like statements, or what I really, and I don't know, that might be hard to nail down, but what I like to hear is just patients that have educated themselves and they're coming in with literally a goal. I want to lose weight. I want to be able to exercise better or more efficiently. And I want to work on my nutrition, whatever it is. I want a better sex life. I love patients that are preventative in nature. I'm a DO, an osteopathic physician, and by nature, if people were to ask what's the biggest difference, by the way, we have the same exact privileges in America, DOs and MDs. Actually, DOs get a little bit more actual hours in medical school because we're actually trained in the musculoskeletal system. So prevention is kind of what we're taught from the start. Now, by the way, there's a lot of MDs that are very into prevention. I'm not trying to say that you can't, and there's a lot of DOs not into prevention. So I'm not trying to say that one way is better than the other, but, as an osteopathic physician, I've always been geared towards prevention. And so patients that understand the values of, like Alzheimer's testing, like, let's not run from this. Let's test. Let's see if we are high risk for Alzheimer's. And if so, what can we do about it? And generally, any patient that has pre-educated themselves and who is open-minded to what all options are out there. It's such a untruth that the only way we can make people better is if it's a prescription that comes from CVS or Walgreens.
Mm-hmm.
And just like Alzheimer's disease, I think that's well, obviously it's a really sad disease, but this thought that there's absolutely nothing we can do about it. By the way, the traditional medications that are out, by the way, I think are practically worthless. But there are things that can be done about it. There's so many good, not so many, but the treatments that are out there are so good, but they're not traditional. And so most average people, and I think it's really sad, don't even know about these treatments. So I don't know about what exactly 3 questions I might think. I like a patient that comes educated, a patient that's done legitimate research. Okay. I'm going to say legitimate. I do get annoyed when my cousin's friend Billy told me that this works and this is what I want. I'm like, okay, you'd be surprised how many times patients try to trump what I say to them because their cousin said, this is their non-medical cousin, by the way. That probably drives me the craziest, is trying to unwind something that their friend told them. But anyway, it's part of the business though. Educating themselves, knowing what they're looking for out of the visit to help me implement a plan to get them there, and who's also with an eye towards prevention.
What I like about my experience with you is that we take a deep series of labs, and this is going to help justify or validate whether we're heading in the right direction based on the things that we decide that we want to accomplish together.
Yeah, and so labs certainly, as I tell patients, is not the end all. So much of what we do is not lab based, but so much of what we do is lab based, right? And so, like, in a weird way, hormone labs are really important to set the baseline so we know where we're at, so that we can know where we're going. But the results aren't so lab based. And what I mean by that is once we determine that Susie's menopausal, okay, like, yep, Susie, you're menopausal for sure. Your lab's 100%. You've got all the symptoms. You're menopausal. You hadn't had a period in a year and a half. You're menopausal. And this is something that I was talking with Dr. Yerth the other day, who's a good friend and an amazing physician up in Boulder, Colorado, is we use those labs and we get labs post to see how we're doing, but they're not the only determining factor of what we're going to do with the hormones, right? Like, okay, your estrogen looks a lot better, but I'm still having really bad vaginal dryness. Well, okay, then we need more estradiol. Like, I guess the one thing that, if there's any providers listening, is just don't get completely tied to your labs. They're really, bless you, they're really important. We need them. Many times they do absolutely decide our clinical decision making, but also, let's be doctors. Providers maybe is the term I should use. Let's be good providers. And, they teach us in medical school that probably 75% of everything is just history. Like listening to your patient, them telling you, back in the old days, they didn't have all the fancy labs and everything. And so, you had to listen to your patient, treat the patient. So I agree, their labs are very, very important. And we do a much deeper dive than the average physician does. I kind of giggle to myself now when I look back at the lab panels that I used to do in traditional medicine. Like, oh my God, that's literally like a $20 lab panel that really tells me, you've heard me say it kind of gives me an idea of how Steve looks today, Tuesday, October 3rd. It doesn't give me a whole lot of insight to 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. So I can kind of deem you safe to live another day, but I don't know that I'm really knowing how you're doing long term.
They were very convincing to me to make changes in my lifestyle. I think that, the folks that really excel or do well under, working with you as a provider, you have to be bought in and you have to address some lifestyle changes. And there's a lot of contradictory voices out there. But when I sat down and looked at my labs and I could see that, you know, one aspect of my body, it was really still working really hard and it needed a break. That was convincing to me, but I had to kind of see the data to buy into it.
And everybody's personality is different, right? Like some people really are data driven, some people are not. And I do tell patients all the time, the good news for us is, especially with what we do with, podcasting and information that they can find out about me before they come in. I think that most patients are kind of bought in when they walk through the door, because today a much more informed patient base than even when I started 12 years ago or whatever, 13 years ago, doing this type of medicine. But I will tell patients during their consultation, if at any point you don't feel like I'm the fit for you, say it now, please. I always joke, you have the ability to, we can work together and help you. And I hope I can help you, or we can part friends at the end of this consult and just say, you know what, this isn't for me. And that's fine. I mean, some people just aren't they don't want to make changes. I always joke, but one of the restaurants that's close to our office here is Chili's. Roam into Chili's about this time of the day, and I can find 95% of the people by the eyeball test are unhealthy when you walk around this. And, they're having Coke and queso and hamburgers and French fries for lunch. I always go, good Lord, that's the lunch. What is dinner going to look like? Because I don't know if everybody's like me. I try to really keep things under control, and my meal that's going to be probably a little worse is going to be dinner. And so you're not going to change everybody. We certainly are a practice that is probably for, I don't know what, 2 to 5% of the population. And that's okay. The good news is that's still a big number. There's a lot of people. And, we really, and I'm not trying to sound trite when I say it, we really don't want those patients in our practice who have no vision of changing anything. Like Brenna, who was listening to our podcast the other day, and she drinks an occasional diet drink, and I was, I think, ranting about sodas and diet drinks, and I guess I made a statement that if you're not even willing to stop soda, then how can I help you? And she was like, that was kind of harsh, and I was like, but it's true. Like, seriously, like in the grand scheme of health, if you cannot give up soda, like that is just, we can talk about anything, but I'm not giving up Dr. Pepper. Here in my neck of the woods, Dr. Pepper is king. Like seriously, you would rather die early than give up Dr. Pepper. Well, you know what? How can I help you at that point? And so, and I hate to trivialize it like that, but sometimes you just got to make those decisions. You know what? I am willing to change things. Sleep. Like, it's one of my pet peeves is sleep, and really diving into people's sleep and trying to, people underestimate how important good sleep is. And guess what gets worse as we age for nearly all of us? Sleep. So we have to work harder and harder. When we're young, we could just like fall asleep in a corner with the lights on and sleep for 7 hours. We really, have to monitor our sleep and work on our sleep and stay on a schedule. And it's one of the reasons why I think truly retired people go downhill so quick, because they lose all scheduling, all patterns. They sleep when they want to, they take a nap in the afternoon and then go to bed early, wake up early or whatever. And their their circadian rhythm just gets hijacked. And before you know it, they're dead. Also because they're not active. Which is why I tell all of I had this discussion with a lady last week. I said, don't ever retire, please. Like if you like what you're doing, don't retire. Just work as many hours as you want to, but don't retire. I don't really like that word retirement all that much. Stay busy in some, and when I say retirement, I mean like sit on the couch and stare at the wall. I mean, I don't care if you're making a paycheck or not, but do something. You have to have something to wake up for every morning to keep our brain and our body going.
I think the conversations for me as a patient, I had to kind of change my relationship with food in some ways, seeing it in a different way, that this is going to, when you consume this, it's going to spike your insulin. Then your body has to deal with that insulin and it needs a break. And when I started thinking about food different, when I started thinking about sleep different, where does our health really start? It's in our cell. Those are like big things that I'm maybe I'd known a little bit about, but I really hadn't taken it serious.
Well, I think it's just sometimes really, like for example, and I don't know last time we talked if I was doing this, but I've been starting to flirt around with continuous glucose monitoring, wearing a glucose device. I don't have it on today because it ran out of battery and I just haven't put a new one on. But even for me, it was very eye-opening. I think you and I talked about it maybe off the air. But realizing like, hey, by the way, my diet is not perfect. I don't claim it is. I think it's better than the average American, but it still has work to be done. Diet has always been my biggest Achilles heel. I don't drink that much. I don't do drugs or tobacco. And I exercise plenty. It's really diet. And you know, so even having the knowledge, so here I am, I have the knowledge. I know what I should eat, what I shouldn't eat. I have the means. I could, if I would take the time, I could have food prepped and that sort of thing. It's just taking the time to do it. So I really have no excuses. But I was even blown away by how little bitty things really changed my blood sugar in a dramatic way. I think I had told you about like ate 2 tortillas and my blood sugar went from 90 to 210.
Wow.
And, for a couple of hours. And then the next day we had leftovers, ate the same meal without the tortillas, and I went from like 90 to 105. And so for those out there who don't understand what that means is, so when a sugar goes up, for a sugar to come down, we need insulin. Insulin has to be secreted. Higher levels of insulin equals basically it's counteracting your metabolism. So the reason why people gain weight in America and the reason why they can't lose weight is nearly always insulin. It's one of the main reasons why we like fasting, right? Because we go long periods of time without eating, which allows our sugars to stabilize, which it's like putting your RPMs on your car at 1500 RPMs and just cruising down the road. You're not working everything as hard, and metabolism's able to ramp up, and we're able to actually go into fatty acid metabolism and burn fat for fuel. And it's for a whole different podcast, but we're able to cellular efficiency is maximized by fasting. And so that's one easy way for patients to get around insulin issues is to fast. And it's why we recommend for our patients, everyone to fast that's not a diabetic. But anyway, so it was eye-opening for me just to really now look and go, okay, I realized that was bad, but I thought that it wasn't that bad. And even though I don't eat tortillas very often, it is Texas and Tex-Mex is king, is all right, you know what, but I can maybe, like I say, I can go to a Mexican restaurant now and get fajitas and, not eat it with the tortillas and, come away from that with not being a perfect meal, but not being a horrible meal. And that's what I tell patients about diets, because unless you're a like bodybuilding competitor or a bikini model or something like that, most of us, our diets are far from perfect, right? It's all about making small choices consistently that make big dividends in the end. It's like investing, if you make little small all the time, you're going to get big dividends down the road. And so just thinking about your meal, how can you make it different? I always go, if Whataburger was the only restaurant left and we had to eat there for lunch, how can I make Whataburger better, right? And go ahead and maybe instead of getting the cheeseburger, get the double meat cheeseburger, but wrap it in lettuce. Don't get the bun and don't get the French fries and get a water. That's by no means a healthy meal. I'm not promoting that as healthy. But what do most people get who go through the Whataburger line? They get the number one meal, which is a cheeseburger with fries and a Coke, or whatever. And I guarantee that double meat cheeseburger on lettuce with a water is you're going to be full. You're going to absolutely be full. You probably won't finish it. And you're going to be much better off for that meal versus all those carbs that you're putting into the system and sugar and insulin spikes and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, I think for me, it was just, all right, cutting out sodas and then starting to reduce all the other things I loved, but it's like, once you kind of go without them for a little bit, it's like, I don't know what my big hang up was about that. It's okay.
If you can cut that stuff out of your diet for like 2 weeks, you'll find your cravings for those things to really go away. The key is the problem is we all, not we all, many people try to only eat a little bit of something, which usually goes very wrong. Like I'm only going to eat a few bites of pie. Yeah, good luck with that. It's like, what is that Lay's thing? Nobody can eat just one or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
it's the same way with sugar. Sugar is such an addictive substance. I always tell everybody if I have an addiction, it's sugar. I either got to be all in or all out on sugar. If I can rid my diet of it for a couple of weeks, fine, no more cravings, it's all good. But if I have it like every other day, it just keeps building. And so sugar is truly the downfall of America. I mean, it's just in everything. It's so bad. If we would only just get it from our natural foods, that would be one thing, but it's just added to everything these days. And my new favorite, or not one of my new favorites, but one of my pet peeves is how they put on candy a fat-free food. Like, are you freaking kidding me? It's nothing but sugar. I mean, like, but you know what? Unfortunately, that marketing works. There are people out there that simply don't understand. Oh, it's fat free. I can eat the hell out of these gummy bears or whatever, and it's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? But, they wouldn't put that marketing on there if it didn't work.
Yeah, I think if things were changed to where we could view it as how's it going to impact my insulin production, I think that would be a big change. Just if you knew, all right, I'm going to eat an apple, I'm going to produce insulin, but if I'm fasting 10 hours, 12 hours, 16 hours, it doesn't matter that I had a little bit of insulin producing stuff. You need it.
Yeah. Well,
You
yeah,
know,
we got it. We have to eat, right? Like we're not going to not eat. And, that's where I think really, and that's where I'm starting to really take my practice more with this continuous glucose monitoring, because I just think it's so educational for you as a patient to go, okay, I ate an apple and peanut butter, or you know what, let's give a different example. I ate an apple alone and my blood sugar went up to X. I ate an apple with peanut butter, which in theory actually would cause your blood sugar not to go up as much because it's slowing down that dumping of sugar into your system. And like, oh, okay, if I add a little bit of a fat or a protein in with that pure sugar, that's why we always say we prefer our patients to never have just a carb. We want a carb mixed with a fat or a protein. And they see that like, okay, or hey, I didn't think grapes were that bad. I had a handful of grapes and my blood sugar jumped up to 150. Like, oh crap, I guess that isn't so great for me. So, I think it can be anything that we can give patients who care more data in their hands to, especially data-driven patients, which I'm a data-driven patient. Okay. It's very, very helpful to me to then make changes in my life and go, okay, as much as I love tortillas, they're not that important to me. I can give up tortillas, or maybe I say once a month, I'm gonna allow myself to have and I always tell my patients, when you're going to do it good. Like,
yeah.
Have 2, 3, 4 of them, but do it, get it out of your system, move on versus, one of the things I hate is diet drinks. Like we talked about, I'd much rather my patients drink real soda, absolutely all day long. If you want to drink soda, drink real soda.
Mm.
And because it's bad for you, I don't think there's an adult out there of above average intelligence or an average or above intelligence that thinks soda's good for you. And, you kind of get your fill and you move on. And versus diet drinks, there's this perception that diet drinks are calorie free and they're good for you or they're okay for you, which is bullshit. So people will drink 6 of them a day, because they're 0 calories. You put 0 calories on something and people just go nuts. And, anyway, that's just kind of my feelings on that.
Yeah, so I think if folks that are wanting to do better in this, they're going to need to take ownership, but you're going to look at data a little bit different, and then it helps you make all these little mini decisions every day a little bit better. And over time, these smaller decisions add up to improvements in your health.
If we can do a little better each day, Or if every week we can look back and go, you know what, I did a little better this week than I did last week. I don't care how little that little is. Eventually that little turns into big, right? It's like I always say with thyroid. Thyroid plays a minor role in every system of the body. So when you add up a minor role in every system of the body, it's a major role, right? It's the same way with changes. If we make little bitty slight tweaks, and a lot of my patients that we're tweaking, and a lot of times they're doing the tweaking. I'm not even having to do the tweaking anymore. They're like, I'm trying to do a little better on my diet, or, I changed my exercise this way per your recommendations to do better. Not trying to brag at all. I don't mean it this way, but the other day I was able to do my max bench press up to 260. And I'm basically just being able to show that at 50 we can get stronger. We don't have to say, oh, we're 45, we're 50, we're 55, and we're done. It's just such a bullshit cop out. It's just not the way it has to be for many of us who are healthy enough to do better. And so, I would say it's kind of like working out. You hope every week of working out, you can do just a little bit more the next week that you did the week prior. What you don't want to do is what so many people do, and I have been guilty of it myself in my life, is being stagnant in the gym, being stagnant in your career, being stagnant in your marriage. Stagnant is what gets you in trouble.
Yeah, and you need to think about, how long did it take you to get to where you are in your health journey?
Mm-hmm.
Those were, let's say it was you're in a not a optimal state when you were making certain decisions over a long period of time to get to where you are. Well, we can't fix that in a week. We're going to have to make changes, and over a long period of time going forward, they're going to improve. But it's just, I think our expectations as Americans was we're supposed to take a pill and it's all done, and just keep doing it the way that we always have.
Reactionary medicine. It's what, a problem occurred, so I'm going to give you a pill to fix that not that problem, but that symptom many times, reactionary medicine, not root cause medicine. Root cause medicine is what you have to do. What actually started this whole cascade of events, going back to the front of the line, or the front of the assembly line, to see what went wrong and fix that, versus, like a truck comes down the assembly line and a screw is missing, and it's happening every single time. We don't want to just put the screw back. Like, where's the screw being missed? In other words, where is that malfunction in the assembly line? Fix that problem, and then you're actually changing people's lives.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Kris, excellent conversation. Folks that are listening, maybe they want to reach out to you, get connected with the research clinic. What's the best way to do that?
So a couple websites, theresearchclinic.com is the easiest way. You can certainly click on links there. You can look at our contacts, give us a call, however you want to interact with us. And drkris.life is just a little bit of information on myself and the practice, and you can get more information there. But theresearchclinic.com would be the easiest way if it's a patient wanting to basically figure out how they can join us. And we're now, of course, open in Tennessee as well, Nashville, Tennessee, as well as our original clinic here in Texas.
All right, Dr. Kris, excellent. So it's a long journey to improve your health. And I think, you think about the conversations that we have, listening to these conversations over a long period of time really do make a difference, whether it's us or other folks in this genre, folks that want to take ownership of their health and they want to participate as an active person with their provider. It's the way to do it. And it's something that is important. And you should reach out to Dr. Kris if you need some help, maybe some directions, suggestions, or introductions. Dr. Kris, be happy. Thanks, Dr. Kris. Excellent.
Thanks, Steve. Have a great rest of your week.
You too. And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining the Dr. Kris Podcast. If you learned something today and you want to connect and get more information, visit our website, www.drkris.life, where you can find more great information or even schedule a time to learn how you can engage with Dr. Kris. Be sure to follow, like, share, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Dr. Kris Podcast.